As you know, in West Virginia, here in just a few more months, mountaineers will truly be free as far as the Second Amendment is concerned. You know, for years we've been able to open carry in West Virginia, but we've had a coat tax, so you put on a coat or a sweatshirt and cover up your firearm that you might be carrying on a holster on your side. Well, all of a sudden you're illegal. Well, no longer, as this law will take effect coming up here in just a few months. Constitutional carry was passed by the West Virginia legislature, and they overrode the veto of Governor Tomlin. But West Virginia is not the only state to do this, not the only state looking at it. And with us from Gun Owners of America, Executive Director Erich Pratt. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Tom. Good to be with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. The fact of the matter is that this was a coat tax, we called it here in West Virginia, because open carry had been the law of the land for a long time.
That's a very good way of putting it. And it's interesting. It's not just West Virginia that has had that situation. Many other states, Idaho included, where you could open carry without a permit, and yet if you were to cover it up, as you said, with a coat or a sweater, all of a sudden you become illegal, and it just made no sense. Now, obviously, the other side, they want to argue, well, then this is going to let criminals carry concealed, which is an easy answer to rebut because, after all, criminals have always been doing that anyway. They don't need a law like this. Criminals do what criminals do. And so what this does is, as you opened up, I mean, this is really our Second Amendment permit. The Second Amendment protects our right to be able to keep and bear arms, and it goes on to say that right shall not be infringed. And so all these things that have impeded people and made them illegal, and you have a lot of situations where people who were not committing crimes, simply carrying for protection, have been arrested, have had to then go through the whole judicial system. And so what this is saying now is if you're not committing a crime and you're just simply possessing for self-defense, that is no longer going to be a crime, and that's a real victory for freedom.
Yeah. Give us some real-life examples of why this law is important, Eric. Apart from the fact that the Second Amendment gives us the right to do just this without having to go and ask the state for permission. But, I'm thinking of, a lady who is fearful because of an estranged spouse maybe, and she doesn't want to go through the process of, getting a permit. So now, she may be able to protect herself because of this law.
Absolutely. In fact, we've seen the opposite happen where, let's say, places like New Jersey, where it is so onerous and it takes weeks, if not months, to be able to get the permission. Last year, a woman named Carol Bound, who was being threatened by her former boyfriend, and she wanted to get a gun, and it was being held up because, they're doing the background check, and whatever they do that takes weeks and months in New Jersey. Well, he ended up showing up at her home one day and killed her in the driveway. That type of thing is absolutely tragic. On the other hand, we see countless examples where people use their firearms and they're away from home. So, you can't say, time out, let me run home and grab my firearm. In fact, just in the past couple of weeks, in Washington, there was in a 7-Eleven, a customer just whipped out a huge sword or hatchet and just started attacking people. And he hit one customer. He was going after the clerk. And thankfully, there was an elderly gentleman sitting there who was just, enjoying his coffee. I guess he does that every morning. And he responds immediately with his concealed carry firearm, shoots the guy dead. End of attack. Police said this guy saved many, many lives. And, Tom, there's actually been many instances just in the past couple years where mass shootings that were intended never happened because at the scene of the crime there was a good guy with a concealed carry firearm that stopped the mass shooting in its tracks. And those type of things usually don't get reported. They don't make nationwide, international news. It's only the times when the bad guy shows up in a gun-free zone and there's nobody there to stop them, and that's where we see the horror stories. It's only those that get widely reported. But the situations like in the hospital in Pennsylvania where a doctor stopped the mass shooting, or situations like at the in Louisiana at a gas station where a biker stopped the mass shooting. Those things, they make a little blip in the news, and that's it. And sadly, we don't see these wonderful examples where a concealed carry firearm saved many, many lives.
Talking with Erich Pratt, Executive Director, Gun Owners of America. West Virginia has passed constitutional carry by overriding the governor's veto on that issue, and this is so important. Many other states doing it as well. Let me look at the other side of this, Eric, because the Sheriff's Association fought vehemently against this, particularly last year, and that's one of the reasons that the governor vetoed it. They say that this is a law enforcement tool, getting a concealed carry permit, and so they feel like this puts them at a disadvantage now. What's your response to that?
Well, I respectfully disagree with them because, officers will tell you that anytime they approach a car, they're always assuming that person can be armed. And I would also point out that there have been sheriffs and police associations in other states that have actually supported this. In Idaho, which just passed constitutional carry, law enforcement there supported it. Same thing in Maine. Maine adopted it last year in 2015. Their law enforcement also supported it. So, I don't know what, this could often be just the result of a couple of individuals that were, tend not to be in favor of citizens owning firearms or carrying firearms and then end up speaking for the entire association, because we have seen in other states that law enforcement get fully behind this. So, and typically when you do see the polls of police officers nationwide, you also see that upwards of 90% actually support concealed carry by average citizens. So a lot of times, sadly, there is that 10% which can be in leadership, and that can then end up speaking for the entire group. Again, I don't know what the particulars were there in West Virginia, but I will say this. They're going to end up being pleased. And we've seen this time and time again where there has been resistance to concealed carry. We frequently see, I remember when Texas got their, we're not talking constitutional carry, they just got concealed carry. And the police association there had fought it tooth and nail. And afterwards, after a few years had gone by and the murder rate had gone down, some of the chief opponents in the police association said, you know what, we were wrong. This law is working real well. And, just the horror stories just simply don't occur. The people shooting each other in the streets over arguments and things like, there's going to be widespread, rampant shootings. And, all these horror stories, we hear them from state to state. Mm-hmm. And certainly the Bloomberg types, because Bloomberg was very active in West Virginia, in Idaho, and now Mississippi, which may be getting constitutional carry very soon. They're also very active down there, and they spread these lies, and they do it in every state. And yet afterwards we see, like Alaska passed constitutional carry, and in the first 10 years their murder rates dropped about 30%. Well, this works. I mean, it makes sense, because once bad guys know that, hey, their potential victim could be armed, it acts as a deterrent. And so we're seeing that deterrent work over and over again. And yet each time we go into a new state, you get the same horror stories. And by this point, you really have to look at that and say, they're obviously just lying, because there's no precedence for this, because every time a state passes it, they see their murder rates go down.
Mm. I guess the other thing that people are concerned about is that you'll have people who are untrained with firearms. What do you say about that?
Well, we certainly encourage training, absolutely. However, we have to come back to the principle of the matter, which is this. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And so to put hurdles in front of people before they can exercise their God-given, constitutionally protected rights is wrong, and it's a mistake, and it will cost lives, just like Carroll Bound in New Jersey. When you put hurdles in front of people and say, well, you know, we're going to have to check you out. Well, you're going to have to go through training first and all these things, then your life is in danger while you're jumping over all those hoops, or jumping through the hoops, over the hurdles, and it costs people their lives. And so while we, of course, encourage people to get all the training that they can, we shouldn't ever be telling people that you can't exercise. You know, we wouldn't do that with any other thing. Well, we're not going to let you have children until you get some training classes, or we're not going to let you get married unless you get training. Or, you know, we don't do that with any other right that we, you know, any other natural right that we have. Why would we do that with our, you know, one of our most precious rights, the right of self-defense?
Well, that's a good point. All right, Erich Pratt, Gun Owners of America. Great to talk to you, sir. Thanks a lot.